Hello, wonderful people. Hello, hello out there. It's a Friday, and I am just stoked for this Friday. I'm back from going away, and I'm back from the Christmas break. I hope you guys had happy holidays, a fantastic Yule, an awesome summer or winter solstice, whatever you celebrated. I hope it was really good, really relaxing. I know mine was, and I want to sort of thank everybody for bearing with me while I had very limited internet access for a few days. So thank you so much for bearing with me. I see some people out there. I want to say hello to Robin, who is in the chat. I want to say hello to Look Out for Number One. I think that's B.S. Lewis, maybe. I'm not sure. Yeah, but thank you, thank you. Yeah, happy bug love there, Caterpillar. Happy bug love. You're amazing. And sort of, so I came back and I wanted to do some more fundamentalist fails, and I remembered this guy that I saw on Doc Dino's channel, which was great because the jokes write themselves with this guy. And look, this aside, I can only imagine the poor schooling this guy went through being Kyle Butt. You know, the butt of many a joke, I would imagine. And, you know, like I said, the jokes just write themselves. But he has turned into sort of a very, the pretty obnoxious preacher kind of thing, sort of a very, a very sort of not really toxic, but just very wrong. And he sort of um, does these things which they don't have a lot of evidence, they don't have a lot of weight behind them. He just seems to like putting this stuff out there. And I think that we can have a look at one of his things. It was like it was a very short one, so this is only like I think I got it down to about 10 minutes or so. So it's very short, but it's got a lot of misinformation in it. So there is a lot to go through and sort of talk about. It's kind of he doesn't understand evolution. He doesn't understand how it works, but there's a general trend with apologists whose main focus is preaching and the sort of theology and sort of eschatology and soteria, you know, all of these sort of very theology related subjects coming in and talking about why evolution doesn't work. And when you understand the process of evolution, it's kind of like, wait, that's not right. You know, someone like Kent Hovind's a perfect example of this, the way that he mischaracterizes the evidence. This isn't that bad. Like, he's a bit of a butt. But he's not that. But look, can we get a butt counter, please? Can we get a butt counter for every single butt joke? I really feel for him, to be honest with you. Like, going through school must have been rough, right? You know, any name that's like that, oof. But there's no reason to take your anger out on the rest of the world, quite frankly. You know, a lot of people had it tough. I had it tough, but don't take it out on the rest of the world by making silly videos of you know, wrong science and stuff. Like, listen to the science. Yeah, no, I hear you, Kata. I do as well, but you know, there's you know, I do, but he's a bit of a tool. So yeah, I you know, I don't feel that bad. I don't feel that bad. I could be. No, I get you. You're a wonderful person, Kata, and you have a lot of empathy, and I totally get you. I understand that. Um, you know, but you've got to laugh. Thank you. No, some of my favorite people are here. Hello, Ember. I got to say hello to you. We're still on for the debate review, which should be fantastic. I'm really looking forward to that. Did we do Kyle versus Dan Barker? I'm not sure we did. I got the perfect like snapshot of him for the thumbnail though. It was great. It was just the perfect shot. Grabbed it. It was fantastic. And we also have a new emoji. If you didn't see my community post, just because. So yes, I did it. Um, yes, that is Bigfoot Jesus. As I said in my community post, I both love and resent all of you for making me do that. I love your whimsical sense of humor. I resent that I now have a Bigfoot Jesus emoji. Yeah, yeah, it's fantastic. No, it's fantastically bad and terrible, and I love you all, but I now have a Bigfoot Jesus emoji, and Dave. Yeah, Dave's big on big on. It's not the best. It's not the best. How dare you? You take that back. You take that back. There is an analog for a Bigfoot in Australia, Chris, who's asking, do you have a Bigfoot in Australia? It's called a Yowie. And Yowies are supposed to like roam the jungle, the bush and stuff. Either a Yowie or there is one that hides in billabongs, and it's called oh, a bunyip. But that's more animalistic kind of thing. That's more, I guess, a um, monster analogy than Bigfoot. Well, bunyips are more monsters than Bigfoot. It is Yowies. Dave's absolutely right. Yeah, the First Nations do. Yep, absolutely, Kat. Well, let's get started, and we're going to review this. No ifs, ands, or buts. I hate myself for making these jokes. I really do. It's terrible. It's awful behavior. I'm so sorry. And look, I do have empathy for him going through, and yeah, it's not his fault. I really should pick on him for his awful knowledge in evolution, not for his name, because there's a lot to pick on here. But let's get this started. And thank you so much for all being with me. I love today. Today's fundamentalist fails, and we got to fail. It's a fail.
In the year 2002, in Cobb County, Georgia, there was a sticker that was placed on the inside cover of the biology textbooks. That sticker simply said that these textbooks contain information on evolution. Evolution is a theory, not a fact, about living organisms, and it should be looked at with an open mind, studied carefully and critically.
Yeah, so this is true. This sticker was placed on the Cobb County textbooks by the Cobb County Board of Education. As I recall, I think that it sort of it launched kind of a lawsuit, which was Cobb County versus Selman versus Cobb County. So this started a lawsuit. Oh, we've got a new member, Captive Des. Thank you so much, Dave. Thank you so much. Enjoy those emojis. Enjoy your Bigfoot Jesus, as well as, yeah, I know you will. That's the only reason you became a member. Don't lie to me, Dave. Don't lie to me. Don't lie to me. That's an emoji right back at you, mate. Just no, it's wonderful. Enjoy and use as much as you want, my friend. Yeah, I've got to hit you up with an email. We got to catch up soon, Dave. I really miss talking to you, mate. Yahweh Yowie, nice. I love it. I love it. Yeah, so this basically the Cobb County versus Selman. They were essentially taken and pushed on court whether this fell under legally or not, whether they could do this, and it was decided they could not. This was sort of confusing science by intelligent design advocates, and they deemed that they had to remove the stickers. So legally, this entirely failed because it was a religious motivated posting on a science textbook that should not be there according to law. So this is interesting that he brings it up, because that sticker, there was no scientific basis for it, and it was religiously motivated. So it was struck down under the First Amendment. I think it was the First Amendment. That you can't put religion into schools, and the objection to evolution is not scientific; it is religious objection, which of course should not be in the classroom. So yeah, that's what happened with that. So it's interesting that he brings it up, because this was something that was wholesalely rejected in the courts, and they basically, Cobb County officials will not order the placement of any stickers, label stamps, inscriptions, or other warnings and disclaimers bearing language substantially similar to the used on the sticker, and wouldn't is the subject of this action, and would not undermine science education in the future. So yeah, and the Answers in Genesis website said it's definitely a victory for humanism and censorship. No, it's a victory for science, and sort of science textbooks shouldn't have religion sort of wheedling its way in. So it's interesting that he sort of mentions this, because it's a distinct failure for his religion to undermine science. You know, the evolution is a fact, and it is a theory.
Considered. Do you know, if you were to take the sentiments of that sticker and you were to look at the evidences for evolution with an open mind, and you study them carefully and you critically consider them, what you would find is these evidences don't prove evolution at all?
It depends what you mean by prove. Science and sort of the way that science works, it generally doesn't prove things as in mathematical proof. So when we're talking about prove, it's really important to define what you mean by prove, because if you mean it provides like a mathematical proof being a classification where the falsehood of that theory is not in question. Science doesn't do that. Everything's always in question. You can always challenge any theory. So science doesn't do that with things like evolution, or the theory of gravity, or the theory of germ theory of disease, or any of these theories. But if you're talking about proof, if you're using a colloquial term, sort of, so something that has been shown to be correct and has a great weight of evidence behind it, if you're talking about that kind of proof, then science does do that. So in one sense, I agree with him, but he's sort of saying, hey, it doesn't have a great deal of evidence, when of course it absolutely does. Yeah, no, hi, Grace. And I want to give a big shout out to Bree in the audience. Much love, Bree. It's so good to see you. For the swarm. And hello to Grayson, who's also in the audience. So citing the scope chart. Yeah, it is kind of, yes, it is kind of a, yeah. Or, you know, I mean, they still use the arguments that have been tested and failed. They still use irreducible complexity, even though that has absolutely failed on all levels, scientifically, legally, morally. Like, they still use these arguments, even though they don't refer to it as irreducible complexity. It is the same argument, kind of thing.
Here are 6 supposed evidences for evolution that simply are not good reasons to believe in evolution.
Well, I mean, you know, place your bets as to how many are going to be wrong or misinformation. Maybe I should do a poll. The last poll bit me in the butt. I'm so sorry, Kyle. I couldn't resist. I couldn't resist. Okay, I'm a bad person. How many will be wrong? Yeah. Let's go for 2, 4, 6. There we go. Yeah, no, that's one of my big grievances, right? If we came from a strawberry, why there's still strawberries? Or when they say, hey, you think you're related to a strawberry, it is conflation between terms, because in one sense, when we say related, like in a scientific sense, we're talking about a genetic link to something. But when we use the term colloquially, we say, hey, Robin and I are not related. We're not family, right? That's how we use it in ordinary parlance. So that kind of, you think you're related to a strawberry? No, not in the sense you're using it. But do we think there is a genetic link between strawberries and us going back billions of years? Yes. which is kind of the conflation that they use. So it's important to find out how they're using the word, which sort of it it's hard to think. No more Jesus in emoji for. You know what? I might if you all vote for it, I might.
Number one, vestigial organs. In 1865, a German anatomist named Robert Wiedersheim said that he discovered 185 different useless or virtually useless organs in the body.
Yeah, and the important thing to note is virtually useless. Some of them do have functionality. Some of them do have functions. Like, for instance, we thought the appendix was useless, but actually it sort of stores some gut biome. So if your gut is ever sort of destroyed of its cultural bacterial culture, it can replenish it. But it's not the same functionality it used to have, and a lot of them don't have functionality. And Kyle is kind enough to bring up some of the ones with no functionality at all. But a real good example of this is like emu arms. Emus have arms, right? They have the actual hanging arms underneath all of those very, very prominent feathers. They have no muscles to the arms. They can't use it for anything. They're completely useless. They are vestigial. So I don't know what Kyle is going to call an organ or a structure of the physiology, like a physiological structure that is not used for anything, like the arms on an emu. I don't know what he would call that, or if they could provide another term for it. Is it God's mistake? Yeah, emus do. Yeah, Joe, I was surprised to hear that as well. It's really creepy. It is. Let me see if I can find something on it. Yeah, they've got these tiny, tiny wings. See here? Now they just hang. They can't use them for anything. They're completely kind of atrophied, but they're still there. The structure is still there. It's really, really creepy. Yeah, they're kind of just dead. They're just hanging around. But yeah, I did not know that either. And that's probably how they beat us in every war. They are armed. Okay, so that is why they beat us in. Okay, now that's just rude, Robin. That's just, come on now, come on. That's just rude. I mean it's funny, but it's rude. Like, come on.
He said this was evidence of evolution. In fact, the argument goes that if
Sure it is. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why somebody would design an emu with arms that it doesn't use, doesn't need, has no function whatsoever, and just stuck it on there for what, lols? Is it lols? I don't know. It's you have to have some sort of way to test your explanations for these things. One of the evidences that sort of comes up again is atavisms. Atavisms are where the genetic code reverts to a previous form. So you will see tails on humans, for instance. It is where the genetic code has selected for a previous iteration and has thrown up a what am I thinking of? A vestigial organ to be prominent again, like it used to be. I'll get some more examples of atavisms. So it's a reoccurrence of those old patterns, kind of thing, and you will literally see, humans with tails. It's really incredible. extra toes on horses, teeth in birds, so avian dinosaurs, dew claws in dogs, some wings on insects. There's a lot of them. It's sort of just, it's this mutation just throws up a previous genetic structure.
Humans evolved, then they would have had at one time organs that an animal would have used in a certain way, but would no longer be used in that way. And
that's an awesome example. The goosebumps, that's awesome, because we know why goosebumps occur. It's kind of a I can't remember. It's a paleo hydraulics. I think it's called a. It's sort of a reaction to cold, where you're trying to fluff your fur, or it's a reaction to fear or some kind of emotive response where you're trying to make yourself bigger. So it's trying to puff your fur up for extra insulation or extra sort of big mass, so you look bigger. Oh, piloerections. Yeah, it's a great name. Piloerections. It's fantastic. There you go. So, you know, yeah, and some people seem to be able to do it on command, kind of thing, which is really, really weird. I can't. Oh, your pup learned to wiggle his ears. Yeah, I think that's a sort of throwback as well. I don't think everybody can do that. Yeah, so it's one of those things that we don't know. Like we doesn't really have any function. There's no reason why humans should be able to move their ears. It's just one of those things.
The human body, and those organs would begin to atrophy.
Okay, so this is a great one as well. So Carl's doing us a favor. He's bringing out some really good examples of vestigial organs, like the wisdom teeth. Now, the wisdom teeth, when we used to do a lot of grinding and crushing, had a good use, but now they will just kill us. We do not need them. There is no reason why you need wisdom teeth. No reason at all. And the way that our jaws have developed, we no longer can fit them. So this is sort of, they point to this amazing design of humans, and you have to ask, well, why did he design us so that, you know, I think it's roughly 40% of us have jaws too small to accommodate the wisdom teeth, and will have to, you know, either have them removed or go through a horrible death in agony. It's really, really weird to think that this was designed for. And it's really dangerous. I had to have my wisdom teeth removed because they were impacting, and they would have decayed, infected, and if they weren't removed, quite likely killed me. So it's sort of this weird idea that, hey, this is not a vestigial organ of wisdom. They're perfect. Then why don't they fit in my skull?
And start to be useless. The problem with this vestigial organ idea is that there are two reasons it cannot prove evolution. Number one, if you did have vestigial organs in your body, that wouldn't prove evolution. You see, evolution has to go from a single-celled organism to a human. And
yeah, no, you're basically saying, hey, we've got to show the genetic link all the way up to humans, and it's sort of an impossibility. I don't know if it proves it by itself. Like it's sort of that. There is no one thing that proves evolution. I guess genetics, if you wanted to say, hey, this proves evolution, but again, I've got issues with the word prove and how you're using it. Genetics is probably the one you would point to, not vestigial organs. They just slot very nicely into our understanding of evolution. It wasn't vestigial organs that initially tipped Darwin towards the existence of evolution. The fact that this German guy, I forget his name, the fact that he went through and said, hey, this is vestigial organs, he was wrong about some of them, and he wasn't completely correct in what he was saying, because Some of them, while we thought they had little function, they do have a lot of functionality. But he's not wrong that they do exist, and he's not wrong about evolution. It's just our understanding has developed over time, as with a lot of our understandings about certain things.
You don't need organs that are decaying and atrophying. You need evolution to produce new organs.
No, okay, so this is where I sort of point out he doesn't understand evolution, that everything is there's a cost, or as opposed to a benefit, but there's always a cost as well. So like with the MZs, if you're dedicating a lot of resources towards growing wings that you don't need, that's a cost, right? So if you have an organ that isn't doing anything, that's a cost. So they do kind of atrophy away. You don't need organs that atrophy away, which is a really weird statement to make. So eventually the animal that doesn't produce that organ at all will be the one to sort of, but not have the cost of producing it, and therefore probably be selected for. But it's not as cut and dry as that, because don't forget, vestigial organs can also change purpose. Not just the vestigial organs are organs that do not have the original purpose of that organ. So it can do something else, and therefore it's kept even in an atrophied state. So yeah, it's kind of odd that he doesn't understand. I mean, it's not odd. He doesn't understand evolution, and yet he's commenting on it. So, and the whole thing is, we should see new organs. We kind of do. We kind of do see things like the mud skipper, for instance. The mud skipper is an amazing fish. It has been found up trees, and it does have its swim bladder is a lung, basically. So it can breathe air. So it is a new organ that sort of it breathes through the lining of their mouth. That sort of it's similar to how amphibians do it, but it's different because it has this sort of rudimentary lung. So we do see things gaining new organs. If you ever want to see it, a mud skipper up a tree is just hilarious. It's literally a fish that's climbed up a tree and is hanging out. Oh, you're driving around WA. Hey, Ruth. Yeah, no, fellow Western Australian, parasitic twins. You mean sort of one twin that's eaten another, I presume? Sort of, in the womb, conjoined twins. Yeah, I mean that can certainly happen. One wins. Yeah. Yeah, Robin, absolutely. Ostriches do use their wings too, but the emu's the more hilarious one, because it really doesn't use its wings for anything. They just sort of hang by its side. It may provide some insulation kind of thing, or some cooling, but they can't move them at all like the ostrich can. So, but that's a case of the wings are a vestigial organ. It is something that does not have the original use of flight, so it uses it for something else. And that's fine. It's just he doesn't understand what vestigial organs are.
We should find wings that are almost ready to allow organisms to fly that can't yet fly.
Well, here's the thing. Like, wings have developed over different times in sort of convergent evolution, where bats have a different mechanism than birds, which have a different mechanism than insects. And we do see some of these things, like sugar gliders, for instance, which use a membrane to glide. I don't know if you'd consider that almost wings, but you sort of, and I love the freeze frame on this guy's face every single time. It makes me laugh. I'm really sorry. So yeah, I'm not sure why you expect to find a almost wing, and if that membrane does count as an almost wing, but you're kind of seeming to want to find it like instantly, like you want to find like a monkey suddenly have suddenly have wings, and that isn't how that. It's not the Wizard of Oz, but It's not the Wizard of Oz, Kyle. It just isn't.
We should find new visionary optical connections in living organisms that don't have them. We should see.
What you mean, like tetrachromy, where some women have extra rods in their eyes that can allow them to perceive colors out of the spectrum? Is that what you're saying? We do have superior vision in females only, because that the gene for that's actually found in the second X chromosome. So if the second X chromosome provides an extra functionality to the eye, they can perceive colors in much greater depths because they have 4 rods in their eye instead of 3. So stuff like that, you mean? Just asking. So yeah, we do see this stuff. It's just you're unaware of it. Yeah, this looks like the guy that tries to pick you up at a mall. I'm really sorry, it does. Hey, how you doing?
Things, adding information, not losing genetic information.
Yeah, we do see genetic. The problem is that their idea of new genetic information is kind of, and I've discussed this with things like with Hovind and stuff, and he says, oh, well, if you have the same words, it's no new information. It's like, what do you expect there to be a new base pair? Like if you've got TAGC for DNA for their base pairs kind of thing, like they're expecting a new, L to come into it. No, that's not going to happen. That they're working with what they're working with, but it's the sequence that's new, and we do see new sequences. Oh, hey, Aya, good to see you. So any new sequence is new information. Just as if I take we only have the letters in the alphabet, we only have A to Z to write with, right? So, but if I take a new sequence of those letters that hasn't been seen before, then I have written new information. I have created new information. It doesn't matter that the individual units of that information are the same as, Shakespeare. If I've written it in a different way, it's new information. And this is what Kyle fails to understand. You have stuff like nyelinase, which is a bacteria that creates a new protein to break down nylon. We know that's new information because that bacteria has created a way only since nylon exists. Humans created nylon. The mutated bacteria found a way to break it down, thrived, and then became in this pond the main biological organism, the sort of highest tier biological organism in this pond, because it could break down the nylon and eat it. So, and that's something that is new information. Like no organism in the past has had the ability to break down nylon because nylon hadn't existed. And that was sort of in a just a pond in an outflow of a nylon factory. And that's interesting because it means that the things that we do, evolution may adjust to our artificial products kind of thing, which is wild. But you can't possibly say that bacteria had that, or that ability was there from the start, because nylon didn't exist. So yeah, there is a lot of examples of this new information. It's just he thinks that to be new information, it has to be new genetic code that's, doesn't exist. And it's sort of like, well, no, that's not how any of this works.
And the second problem with the vestigial organ argument is that 185 list of vestigial organs, it began to dwindle very rapidly when we started looking more closely into them, and it became 180 and then 175. And then, do you know, as we look more into the body, we realize that those vestigial organs were very useful.
Yeah, so that's not entirely true, because don't forget vestigial organs. Even his definition at the start, which was the German gentleman's definition, was no use or little use, right? And that's not exactly true, because that's not how we define vestigial organs. They're organs which had another use and now do not have any use, or are used for something else other than the previous function. So he's kind of really misleading here. And he showed a couple of examples where they literally have no use, like wisdom teeth. They literally have no use whatsoever. In fact, they're harmful to us. The use is negative. Things like your goosebumps, that doesn't have a use anymore. Like fluffing your skin, your hairs, that's not going to help you. It's a remnant that doesn't have a use anymore. So when he goes down to 0, that's not entirely true. There's still some we know don't have use, but he is right that, hey, there's some things we thought vestigial organs were useless. Like there were some of the vestigial organs we thought were useless, but we found out for them to have a use that we were unaware of. Sure, they're still vestigial organs, and it's not all of them like Kyle here is suggesting. So he really is misrepresenting the entire thing.
Many of them extremely useful. Number 2, the idea of homology. We're told that similarity proves ancient ancestry. And what I simply mean by that is we're told that because humans have similar physical characteristics to certain animals, that proves that they evolved from animals.
Well, that's not entirely true. I mean, again, he's using this proof word really liberally, which is weird because a scientist wouldn't use proof like he is using it right now, just showing. And again, his face is just. I'm sorry. This man has a rubber face. He should. Has anyone ever heard of gurning? Tell me if you've ever heard of gurning. Please tell me. Has anybody ever heard of gurning? And the poll is complete. Only in the butt is the winner. It's too easy. Yeah, no, I get where animals aren't. It's amazing how many creationists get very, 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 very angry that you say that. So gurning is contorting your face into shapes, kind of thing. It's basically they have competitions to see who can do the best face thing. So it's a sport where you try to sort of you try to make the weirdest shapes to your face, kind of thing, and you know, so that's gurning. I'm not surprised you haven't. It's one of those English sport things that's kind of really, really popular in sport, kind of thing. Let's give the butt the prize. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. My best gurn is probably I don't know. I can't do it. I can't do it. It's yeah. He's a lizard person. Yeah, Amber. Absolutely. But yeah, it's yeah. The English have such weird sports. They have weird sports. You know, they have stuff like soapbox racing that people dress up, and it's actually pretty funny because they go down like this slope in an unpowered soapbox, sort of dressed up as stuff. They've got some weird sports. They do cheese rolling and all kinds of weird stuff. You got to love it though. Like it's such a weird, eccentric sense of humor.
Well, similarity doesn't prove evolution at all. In fact,
Yeah, but it like not like you're saying. It fits neatly in what we know about evolution. As I said, if you're looking for this prove thing, probably genetic evidence is where you're looking, because that is the nail in the coffin for the anti evolution rhetoric. That is the nail in the coffin. The way that our genes line up with the nested hierarchy that is supported by homology, which is supported by embryology, which is supported by the fossil record, which is supported by all these things come together. But the overwhelming one is genetic evidence. That is the one you're probably looking for. But you know, so he's sort of saying, hey, it doesn't prove it. No, not by itself, but when you add them up and add that to the genetic evidence, you're pretty well done, sir. You're done.
You could see things that are similar, and you would realize that those similarities are often caused by a common designer.
Okay, can we get some evidence of this common designer and this common design? Because As I said, atavisms kind of blow that out of the water. Like if you're saying, hey, they design them commonly, then why would we revert to having tails if the DNA sequence has a misfire? That doesn't make sense. It means that we were designed with these traits and these things from other animals, or that show ancestry with other animals, but they just come up from time to time because that's in our design. It's a really weird argument to make, and atavisms, I've got to, in debate, I've got to sort of focus more on them, because it would mean that a designer would say, okay, well, I'm going to design a human, bipedal, no tail, unlike a monkey or other simian which has a tail. But in that design, I'm going to make it occasionally a mutation causes it to have a tail, which makes no sense whatsoever. It's ridiculous. And yeah, I mean, you can argue common design, but I think that more accommodates for the evidence rather than actually shows a common designer.
Suppose there were a supernatural intelligent designer and he created a world where many organisms would need to drink the same water, eat the same kinds of food, walk over the same types of terrain.
And the other problem with that is convergent evolution, right? So if your argument is, well, we have similar structures because God designed us to be able to do the same things, right? He wanted us to be able to chew, so the jaws of chimpanzees and humans look similar because that's the mechanism he decided. The problem with that is you get convergent evolution. So you get, like, bats and birds do flight, but in vastly different ways. So the idea that he has to make them similar to get the required outcome or fit the required environment here isn't actually true, because there is no compulsion to do that under the creationist worldview. That he went, okay, well, things have got to fly around, escape from prey. I'm going to design all of these creatures to do it using feathers, which are modified scales. And we know they're modified scales, by the by. And I'm going to design these other creatures to use their flexible membranes between their fingers to grow them out and use that to fly. So that whole thing just sinks that argument, because there are a lot of examples of convergent evolution where two different processes are used and achieve essentially the same result, or attempt to get the same result. You can even point to things like manipulation, for instance. Yeah, we've got fingers and they're very effective and they're very, very cool. Everybody loves fingers. But, you have cephalopods who use tentacles and suckers to achieve very similar effects. They're very agile. So that just shows that he's not doing a common design, because the designs aren't common. There are different ways of achieving the same goal. So you can't point to common design without going, oh, well, that's another design that's common to these sort of creatures. And in that way, evolution fits way better than saying, hey, something designed that for the same purpose.
What would happen? Well, obviously, he
I
would use
regret it already.
similarities, similar structures to accomplish his goals. Similarity doesn't prove common ancestry. In fact,
well, no, it doesn't. But here's the thing. It's one of the things that we can go, okay, well, birds are from this lineage of reptiles and dinosaurs, and sort of the scales to feathers make sense in that context. The bats are from a mammal lineage, so that makes sense in their lineage. And insects are from arthropods, which makes sense the way that they're doing it with an exoskeleton attached wing in there. Like so it makes a lot more sense from a nested hierarchy where these things split off, and then it evolved to adapt separately. Then all of them came from certain kinds, and that was designed to do this thing. Because there is no reason under that system to have these really, really different ways of achieving the same thing. There's no reason for that. It's just that it fits with evolution far more than creationism.
similarity argues more for a common creator than anything else.
No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. It doesn't argue from a common creator. Like, this is the thing. This is just rhetoric. There's no reason why it argues for a common creator. There's no reason for that at all. It's just accommodating the facts to your religious belief, and that's all it is. There is no evidence for a common creator. There is no stamp of hey, this was done by me. It's just sort of something that they have to say, because they have to acknowledge the genetic similarities between, say, humans and apes and other organisms. And here's the thing: the genetic code becomes more dissimilar the further up the nested hierarchy of evolution that you get. There's no real reason why a creator would have to do that. He could make humans and birds almost identical and achieve whatever he wanted to achieve, and make humans and chimpanzees completely different and achieve. Like, there's no real reason for that. I don't see why there's a reason. The fact is that it fits with evolution way better than it does with a single creator. Oh, hey, What the Beck, how you doing? Good to see you. Like, really good. We're about halfway through. Actually, I forgot to do something at the start. I've got a big shout out to do for I Killed Earl, who's a really good supporter of the channel, really amazing person. We all love I Killed Earl. They're having a birthday, and I'm going to toss it over to her birthday party at the end of the stream. So if you want to go over to it's on Matters now. If you want to go over to that, that's fine. All good. But I'm going to kick it over there when I'm finished anyway. So please, we're going to be playing some games. We're going to be having some fun. Come and hang out with me at Matters Now and celebrate I Killed Earl's birthday. So yeah. Nearly 3 a.m. Sinedra, you are a beast. 3 a.m. in England. You are a beast, and you should probably get some sleep. Seriously. I love you. Get some sleep.
Supposed evidence for evolution number 3, the fossil record.
Well, yeah, the platypus is an interesting one. It's convergent evolution on steroids. It's the best example of convergent evolution because it has all these traits of, say, build birds, for instance, but its bill is not the same. It's leathery and it's made of different material. It's a different thing, but it achieves the same thing. The monotremes in general, the echidna as well, the egg laying as well, shows that for some reason we have these organisms that instead of giving birth, they lay eggs, and they're mammals, which is weird, and there's no reason why. Yeah. Look, I'm interested in your well-being, Sinedra. I really am. But you do you do you, boo. You do.
You know what we're told is that you can look into the fossil record and you can find proof that organisms evolved over millions of years.
Well, this is the thing. You can find proof. No, not really. Not how I would use proof. There is strong evidence in the fossil record that supports evolution, especially the stratigraphy, how they're layered down with, sort of, there's no birds below a certain level. Like, it just cuts off. There's nothing there except dinosaurs. Past and below dinosaurs, there's only sort of but really base cephalopods and shellfish and things like it really does show the sort of gradient. But when you say proof, I don't think proof is the right word.
Supposedly we're told that you can find transformational organisms that prove this animal evolved into some other kind of animal.
Yeah, I'm not sure about transformational organisms. There's certainly mosaic organisms. I'm not sure if this is a creationist word or what. Yeah, I think this is maybe I'm not finding anything on transformational organisms. Does he mean transitional forms? He probably means transitional forms, and he just got the word wrong. I don't know exactly what. Let's assume he means transitional. And yes, we find a lot of, no, you're right, Robin. I think he did mean transitional. Transformational, I've never heard of, but transitional organisms definitely exist. Like, they're there. A lot of the time we were told there's no transitional forms. You know, the missing link was the one specifically applied to humans, but we found that, you know, the sort of the Australopithecines seem to be the transitional link between sort of very simian-like ancestors and humans. But there's other ones like Archaeopteryx and things like that. They're transitional. The Archaeopteryx is a beautiful example that was A, predicted by Darwin himself, and B, you can't categorize it as a dinosaur or a bird. It's one of the mosaic organisms. It has features from both of them. You can't put it in one or the other. And this kind of inability to classify things, it's not a problem in evolution. Like what we call a bird and a dinosaur, they're just labels we give depending on what traits they have. But, you know, there's going to be some cutoff point, and that cutoff between that's a dinosaur and this is a bird, it's kind of where we decided it would be. It's kind of arbitrary because there's this non-ending sort of flow from one to the other. So where we put that delimiter, that thing that limits one as being a dinosaur and one as being a bird, is really, really just where we decide it is. So, you know, that's not a problem for evolution, but it's a problem for created kinds. It's a problem for them because they say, oh, this came from this kind that was created all thing. Then why does this animal have traits of both of these kinds? You know, we find their fossils, we find sort of cat dogs and dog bears kind of thing. And even, yes, crocoducks. Like you actually have a dinosaur that had sort of crocodilian traits and bird traits. So it's kind of odd, you know, that they sort of they sort of say that transitional organisms don't exist. Yeah, of course they do. Tons of them.
Animal. But if you were to take that seriously and you were to go to the fossil record, what you would find is that those transformational fossils are missing on a grand scale.
Well, no, they're not really missing. You know, fossils are rare. And sort of these transitional forms, we don't get as many of them because we're trying to classify them into groups, so we group them up. But it's not like we've got like none of them or anything. And for your creationism to be false, we only have to find a few of them, like to say, hey, this is evidence for evolution, because if this was created separately, it should not have the traits of this other thing, but it does. And what's really hilarious is when we do sort of, like, for instance, we have Australopithecus afarensis. When we find one, the creationists argue. Some of them say, oh, it's just an ape, and some of them say it's a human. And they say, oh no, there's no connection between them. But, you know, they're disagreeing on whether it's an ape or a human because the traits could easily be classified as an ape and could easily be classified as a human. They have traits of both. And that shouldn't happen if you have a created kind. It should just have the traits of whatever it was created as. So it is very strong evidence, regardless of what, you know, this butt says.
In fact, evolutionist Mark Ridley stated that no real evolutionist, whether gradualist or punctuationist, uses the fossil record as evidence in favor of the theory of evolution as opposed to special creation.
Yeah, it's weird that he's sort of quoting this. It's very odd because he went on to say that evolution is absolutely true. So, you know, we don't really use the fossil record that much. It's just a nice addition. It's like I said, the genetic evidence and the embryology, the atavisms, the homology. There's all these things that point to it. The fossil record just fits neatly into it. No one's really using it as evidence by itself. So what he said, in any case, no real evolutionist, whether gradualist or punctuationist, uses the fossil record as evidence in favor of evolution as opposed to special creation. That does not mean the theory of evolution is unproven. So he's saying that it is proven. So that it's kind of, you know, telling that this guy missed the last section off of that. that he's quoting Mark Ridley, who's saying, yeah, no real, person uses the fossil record, but we don't have to because it's completely proven by other stuff like genetic information. Yeah, so from biogeography and from the hierarchical structure of taxonomy, and we've observed evolution of species. So, he's giving his thing. Yeah, I think it is evidence. I don't think it's the main evidence, and that's probably what he was talking about. But I think it's just telling that he missed the next section off, where Mark Ridley, the guy that he's sort of using an appeal to authority for, said, oh yeah, evolution is absolutely proved. I think that's kind of dishonest. He's quote mining. He mined a quote and then sort of said, hey, and he's trying to suggest that Mark Ridley doesn't believe that the fossil record shows evolution.
Now, why would...
And I think Mark Ridley's point is it doesn't have to. Like, we've got so much evidence that it doesn't have to, but I think it's actually pretty good the way that it slots neatly into the evolutionary theory, while it doesn't slot into the creationist ideas.
You say that. Really would say that, because when you look at the fossil record, you see organisms coming into the fossil record.
No, that's not why he would say that. Like, this is the deception that he's making. He's saying, why would he say that? He's saying that because of this. No, he's saying it because the evidence is overwhelming without the fossil record altogether. It's just, he's trying to make it seem like Mark Ridley disagrees with evolution. And as I pointed out, his next words were, evolution has been completely proven. So Kyle is being really dishonest and disingenuous here. And this is a lot of the stuff that Kyle Butt does. He kind of says, why would they say that? They would say that because, and not give the opinion of the person, they give their own opinion. That he's making it seem like Mark Ridley is saying this because things go out of the fossil record and into it. Yeah, no, I realize he wrote the textbook on evolution, but he really does believe in evolution, and he sort of says that it's been completely proven. I'm just sort of pointing out how Kyle is misrepresenting the man in order to further his own goals.
Fully formed. You see a stage of stasis where they do not change, and then they go out of the fossil record without evolving into anything else.
Well, that's not entirely true. I mean, how does Archaeopteryx fit into that? And that's the same for any animal whatsoever. I mean, when you find a fossil, it's kind of just a snapshot of that time. Like, what you're not understanding is that it requires a long time for things to evolve into another one. You're not going to see like say an Archaeopteryx come in and then like just change completely in front of your eyes. I'm not sure what he's getting at here, but the fact that we can't classify Archaeopteryx distinctly as a dinosaur, and we can't distinctly classify it as a bird, it has traits of both, is a problem. Have you ever heard of irreducibly complex organisms? No. Irreducibly complex organisms? No. The flagellum and the no, they're not organisms. Oh boy. Okay, so this is where look, you're misunderstanding. Like, the flagellum and the human eye are supposedly irreducibly complex structures. An organism is something like me or you or the bird in your picture, or it's an organism. It's not, it's an organ. An organism is a complete creature. You're talking about an organ. And no, okay, so the flagellum is a vestigial organ. It basically used to be a pump, and we can point to these pumps that have a similar structure. So it's not irreducibly complex. This was actually ruled on in court, Kitzviller versus Dover, where Behe took the stand, Michael Behe, and he sort of said, hey, the bacterial flagellum's irreducibly complex. The scientists showed how that was evolved from a protein injector system, a pump. So it's not irreducibly complex, and that was ruled on in court. the human eye is also not irreducibly complex. You can basically have eye spots in creatures, and all they do is detect, whether there is light or not light, so it can hide in shadows. When it like curves up a bit, then it can actually detect which direction the light is in. And when it curves around, eventually you get a primitive eye. So we know that the eye isn't irreducibly complex. It can have functionality in a more basal form than what it is. So that's not true at all. Yeah, look up Kitzmiller versus Dover. Yeah, it was a court case, Kitzmiller versus Dover, and they brought up the irreducible complexity argument, and it was absolutely demolished by the scientists of the day. All of their examples of irreducible complexity are not irreducible. That's the problem. They can have other functions.
Exactly as the creation model would predict. The fossil record does not prove evolution.
If humans are evolving, what will we be next? Don't know. It'd be interesting to find out, wouldn't it? I don't know. But in order for any species to speciate, like if you're saying, hey, we've got to be something, we will always be humans, right? So the way that we define things in cladistics, like eukaryotes lived a long time ago, but we're still eukaryotes. Mammals first emerged a while ago. We're still mammals. Everything retains its previous clade as it's passed down the line. So we're still going to be humans, whether we speciate. Like, just say we sent people to Mars and people lived on Mars. Okay. Mars has a lighter atmosphere. Like, it has not the same gravity as Earth. So what we'd probably find is that the people who lived on Mars over time, probably they would turn into lighter animals. They wouldn't need as much body mass, say, in the legs to hold themselves up. They would probably be lighter. They'll probably also be more adapted to CO2 because, as we terraformed, we'd probably be putting in oxygen, getting out CO2. There would be a lot more CO2 in the atmosphere because there is on Mars. They'd probably be better adapted to the cold. It all depends on what the pressures are. So yeah, we don't know. It all depends on what the environment is that humans are in. So environment dictates what survives. What survives dictates how the changes occur. So it all depends on the environment that we have in the future, which we don't know. We don't know the environment that we're going to be subjected to.
Number 4, the idea of mutations. We're told that mutations prove you could get a certain single-celled organism to mutate over multiple millions of years and bring...
Yeah, so cool channel. Look, if you want a discussion or debate, my email address is in my description. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't the idea isn't just firmly established. It's scientific theory. It was basically trying to teach creationism and evolution in schools. That's what they were testing. It absolutely, creationism is dead in the water scientifically. It has nothing going for it at all, unfortunately, for the creationists. While evolutionary theory is strongly supported with a just abundance of scientific evidence behind it. The court case wasn't whether it was true or not. It was whether they could teach an alternative idea in science classes, and the answer is no. So they decided two things. They decided that intelligent design was creationism, wearing a wig. It is a religious idea, cannot be taught in classrooms. And the court decided that evolutionary theory is like a proper scientific theory with a weight of evidence behind it and should be allowed to be taught in classrooms as our scientific theory should be, just like the theory of gravity or germ theory of disease. So yeah.
About new information.
Oh god, yeah, cool channel name. Seriously, it's creationist greatest hits. Yeah, meme generator. Yeah, no, I gotcha. Look, if you want a discussion, I'm happy to have it. I'm going to move on because you're sort of just doing the creationist greatest hits here, cool channel. So I do apologize, but mate, like I wish I had a bingo card. It's yeah.
Information on a grand scale that, given enough time, you could get a human being. What's the problem with that line of reasoning?
There's no problem with that line of reasoning. It's no problem whatsoever.
The problem is that mutations don't give us new information.
Sure they do. I brought up the example of nylonase earlier, where bacteria are mutated to be able to mutated to be able to process and eat nylon waste. Hadn't existed before nylon factories, which were a human occurrence. That could not possibly be old information. If you're talking about the TACG, the base pairs, no, we're not going to get any new base pairs. That's the way that DNA works. It just has these 4 base pairs. But any new sequence of those base pairs is new information, just as any new sequence of letters is a new word. Like if I wrote a new word that's Burzlblup, and like it's just got a random, like it is new information if it's never been seen before.
Mutations can only take information that is already available and cause it to decay. Mutations are an example of a loss of genetic information.
No, that's not true. That is 100% not true. It isn't necessarily a loss of genetic information. You'd have to explain what you mean by losses anyway, because yeah, sure, there can be omission as a mutational error, like it basically omits a chain. But there's also duplication, where a sequence in the DNA is duplicated by mistake. So that sequence will repeat and it might be put somewhere else, like it is a duplication. That can't possibly be a loss of genetic information. That mutation, which is duplication, it only gains. It had all the information it had before, plus the section that's been duplicated. That literally cannot be a loss of genetic information. That is only more information. If it has all the same sequence as the previous organism, plus a section that's been duplicated, what's been lost? Nothing. Yeah, so this is sort of a Sanford argument. It's terrible because mutations obviously can cause more information to arise.
Let me give you an example. For the last 100 years or more now, scientists have been studying fruit flies. They are great examples of how you can mutate an organism. We have been zapping these fruit flies with radiation and mutating them in chemical ways for more than 100 years now. The reason that they are so valuable to study is because you can get a new generation every 14 days. We have in that 100-year period the equivalent of what would be millions of years of evolutionary time. And what do you have after all the radiation and mutation? Do you have a fruit fly that has evolved new genetic information? No, you don't. In fact, all you...
Yeah, so usually when you're bombarding stuff with radiation, it usually isn't the mutation that we're talking about, which is natural mutation or chemicals kind of thing. Even so, they do gain some functionality. They can rapidly adapt. We've seen them adapt to, say, dry environments and things like that. We have seen fruit flies adapt to all kinds of things. But I mean, I'd have to look at the experiments, but I think that they can sort of have, experiments with I think it's Drosophila is the fruit fly, where they have one fruit fly that sort of has one ability or one thing that they can do, and another fruit fly which has another one. It's not so much bombarding them with radiation, and sure, we've done that because we want to see the effect of radiation on something that rapidly evolves. But it's more that we've just kept them. I can't remember the longest running fruit fly experiment it's been. But here's the thing. If and this is really getting to something called genetic entropy, which is Sanford's favorite sort of thing. He's, oh, it's only detrimental. If the changes were only detrimental, the fruit flies should have died out ages ago, and they haven't. They just haven't, right? So if all of these are so detrimental, why aren't they dying out? Right? Why? I want to point to the dark fly study. So what they did is they basically put a whole bunch of fruit flies in the dark, and they actually developed, well, yes, their eyesight diminished, but their actual ability to scent things, to sniff out, to use olfactory mechanisms actually got better, right? Which is exactly what evolution would expect. If you change the environment and let them propagate, these things naturally, that's natural selection at its finest. They're in a dark environment instead of a light one. Their eyes don't work as well anymore. Their olfactory senses get better. There's your new information. But what he doesn't understand is everything is a profit and loss with evolution. You don't get just, oh, well, it's going to develop this thing for no negative. The environment shows what is negative and positive. So that fruit fly, while being a gain of information and a gain of good, a benefit in the darkness, is a detriment in the light, and vice versa. Everything is, he wants to find this thing that comes for nothing, and evolution doesn't work like that. Having dark skin may prevent you from getting as much sunlight. The melanin stops you from getting as much vitamin D, and it can protect you from sunburn and other stuff. Problem is that in light areas, like if somebody with really dark skin goes north to, say, Norway or something, you need to take vitamin D supplements and folate, because you're not getting as much vitamin D as you can. And it's really weird. I saw this video on how we kind of go to white people. We go, hey, wear sunscreen and protect your skin, wear sunscreen and stuff. It's said a lot, national campaigns and things like that. We need to have a campaign to Black people and dark-skinned people to say, hey, take vitamin D and folate if you are not in a very sunny environment, because you won't get the vitamin D your body needs. And I think that just shows the kind of latent sort of colonialist sort of racism in our society, that there's this health issue for both white-skinned and light-skinned and dark-skinned people, but only the light-skinned people's issues are addressed. And I think that needs to be made more clear. And I'm so glad I saw that video. It was really eye-opening. But I use it as an example for this profit and loss thing. Like, if you live in Australia, having dark skin's a benefit. You'll get your vitamin D because it's bloody sunny here. But there's some detriments if you move elsewhere. My light skin is actually a detriment in where I live, because I get sunburn, especially on my baldy head. It sucks. My head hurts. It's a detriment, and not to mention skin cancer. But that's only due to the environment.
Still have is a fruit fly. It hasn't evolved into anything else. Mutations don't prove evolution. That's simply not the mechanism that could get a single-celled organism to a human.
Yeah, are you going to back that with anything, or just state it categorically? So this is sort of an argument. Oh my God, this guy's face. Hey, yeah, I think that he's not back. This is an argument from incredulity. It's just, well, I don't think there's new information, so it can't happen because I can't believe it can happen. Well, that's not a really good reason for believing it couldn't be so. And we all know that it's his religious belief that is coloring all of this.
5, English peppered moths. We're told that English peppered moths provide an example of evolution in action. You see, before the Industrial Revolution, there
sure is.
There were 2 varieties of English peppered moths. One dark colored, one light colored, but the light colored was much higher in ratio than the dark colored. But after the Industrial Revolution, the dark colored became the more prominent color and the light.
Yeah, and does anyone know why it was? Why that happened? Why it switched, kind of thing? Does anyone know? After the Industrial Revolution in England. Yeah, that's true, Beheaded Kamikaze. That's true. So, yep, I'm glad you're here to pull me up on it. Yeah, definitely check any advice you find with a med. I'm not a medical professional, and Beheaded Kamikaze is absolutely right. So thank you so much. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I shouldn't be giving medical advice. I guess it's just my. I'm just recounting something I saw on the internet, which maybe isn't a good thing either. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Kamikaze. Thank you. So the reason why is because the trees got soot on them, because a lot of coal being burnt during the Industrial Revolution. There was a lot of, especially around those coal plants, the dark ones did really well. And they used an example of, well, I mean, it's hard to say it's natural selection, because the coal making the trunks black instead of this mottled white color isn't exactly natural. But it is natural selection. It's the environment selecting for these moths. So it is kind of yeah.
The fewer in the mix. And we're told that's because birds could see the light colored better, etc. And this was supposedly an example of natural selection. The problem with this example is, number one, many of the pictures were faked because the English peppered moths don't often land on tree trunks, and the entire idea was flawed in that way. But the second problem was that before the Industrial Revolution,
the pictures weren't fake. They weren't fake. I mean, they showed diagrams, and I remember seeing diagrams about the peppered moth, and they were just diagrams, but that doesn't mean that what they were saying was fake. They're just showing you a comparison. I think he's really doing the sort of the flat earther thing of, oh well, if it's just a diagram, it's fake. I don't think it was an experiment either. It just observed. I know nobody turned the trees black to experiment with these things. They just I don't know what he's talking about. I mean, there were certainly pictures that had the two moths on that weren't real pictures. They were just sort of describing what happened. Yeah, I don't know what he's talking about with fake pictures. It sounds sort of flat eartherish to me, that the diagrams are fake pictures. No, they're diagrams for instructions, Kyle. Don't. Why the moths did better as being black after the Industrial Revolution was the question, Sinedra. Yeah, go see a doctor. Absolutely, Al. It's I know it can be rough, but yeah, see a doctor and be well. All the best. I'm sorry to hear. I'm sorry to hear that you're not well. That sucks. But do take care, Al. Be safe. See a doctor. Be honest. Give all your symptoms. Hassle them. Yeah, they had real pics, Al. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they did. So I mean, it just sounds like a flat earther. Oh well, you had a diagram. It's not a real picture, hence fake. It's like, no, that's not how that works. If we sort of do a diagram for a mechanic, it's not like engines don't exist and it's all fake. Come on now. Hello, Big Bad Mama. Much love, BBM.
The genetic information in the English peppered moth genome had genetic information for two varieties, light colored and dark colored.
Yeah, we're not using it as an example of speciation, but so we're using an example of natural selection. It's not for speciation. It's just it shows one of the mechanisms of evolution. It doesn't really show evolution itself. You're kind of right on that, but it shows one of the mechanisms, which is natural selection or a selection process in general. I'm not sure if you can sort of yeah. Look, he's a happy man. He's a happy man when looking at his misinformation. I love it. But look, I could freeze frame this guy at any point and get just a classic face. Yeah.
And after the genetic information was the same. English pepper moths simply do not prove.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're not the same. They've got different genetic information in the black and in the peppered. That's the whole point. You missed the point. The point was to show how a change of environment can change the selection process of black and peppered moths. I don't think you think this is what you think it is. It's a demonstration of natural selection, not of speciation or some kind of other evolutionary process.
Evolution. And number 6, horse evolution. If you were to look in your biology textbooks, you would see that horse evolution is often used as evidence that evolution really occurred.
Well, yeah, I mean, they basically have one toe with a massive nail on it. It's sort of, yeah. They've still got the same skeletal structure as everything else. They've just got their one massive toe. They basically walk on their toenail, one massive toenail. That's essentially what they do. But we have all these other more basal forms of horse that have, like he's showing in this picture, multiple toes on them.
You would see a picture of a very small animal, almost looks like a fox or something like that, evolving into modern horse. But
Sure.
This scenario, it's fabricated. It's not
What?
true. It was made up. In fact,
it wasn't.
more than 50 years ago, Dr. George Gaylord Simpson said the uniform continuous transformation of Hyracotherium into Equus, so dear to the hearts of generations of textbook writers, never happened in nature.
I love how he's using a quote from 1953. I wonder who this guy is. And these animals, they did exist. The Hyracotherium. Now, he might be saying, hey, this was a, not a direct ancestor, but sort of it went off to the side. It was a cousin of the line that led to the horse kind of thing. But I don't see why that would make it wrong. Great. We got a butt and a gaylord. That's so terrible. I'm so sorry. I just, yeah. I feel like this is a quote mine as well. Give me one sec. I want to look this up. I have suspicions about this. Edition of yeah, so he basically was saying that it wasn't so the important words are the uniform continuous transformation. So he's basically sort of saying, hey, the way that the textbooks show it as a uniform, smooth transition here is not the way that it happened, right? So that's essentially what he's saying, which we know happens in evolution all the time. The whole idea of punctuated equilibrium was that it settles on a form for a while and then it moves past it. But he's not sort of. I don't think he's saying what Kyle thinks he's saying. It's yet another quote mine from good old Kyle. Now, this is the transformation of Hyracotherium. It wasn't straight into the Equus. It was through Myohippus, Merychippus, and then Equus. But you can sort of see the more basal forms going down, like it lost toes, its toes moved up and then into the modern horse. But it still retains the same sort of forefoot bones as it always did. And there were spin-offs. The Paleother family, the Antichtherium family sort of split off. So they're not ancestors of the horse. They're their own groups, which went extinct. So what he's talking about is it wasn't just the Hyracotherium just transforming into the Equus over, you know, generations kind of thing, like just a few generations. It was it wasn't a steady, smooth, you know, transformation. It's this very halting, very chaotic kind of selection process that had spin-offs. And so he's just quote mining here to try and make it appear like, oh, even the paleontologists didn't believe that you know, the horse came from these things. No, he did. He did. Absolutely, he did. He just doesn't think that the what the textbooks show as this smooth transition is actually the case. So again, you know, if anybody had any question, he's talking out of his butt.
You see, this information that's presented to us as proof that evolution actually occurred is not proof at all.
Depends what you mean by proof, but if you mean supported evidence with, you know, scientific rigor applied to it, then yes, it is proof. If that's what you mean. If you mean proof as in, you know, completely unassailable, set in stone sort of ideas that can never be questioned, well, science doesn't do that kind of proof. It just doesn't.
If we look at it with an open mind and we study it carefully and we critically consider it.
Yeah, I like to have an open mind, not so open my brain falls out. I think that's a really good quote from somebody. I mean, I didn't make that up, but yeah, I you know, I don't look at stuff with a mind so open that you will believe literally anything. And this is the thing. No one's looking at evolution sort of without an open mind. They're saying, is this the whole fact that evolution was tried to be disproven and cannot be scientifically disproven is the thing that's happening. It's not like we're just going, oh, well, that is, you know, I'm not going to even consider anything else. Absolutely, they considered everything else.
We'll realize that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth and all.
Well, have you got some evidence for that? How about some evidence for that, buddy? Oh, were you off, Sinedra? Well, yeah. Good night, Al. If you're leaving, good night, Sinedra. If you're leaving, I must admit, I kind of missed the chat.
All of the organisms, and evolution just simply didn't play any part in God's creation.
Yeah, ignore the evidence. Just believe the Bible. This is the thing. Like this is just a religious belief. There isn't any evidence for this. All they can do is point to the Bible and say, "Hey, it says so." And this is the thing that they kind of do. They don't say, "Hey, we've got these phenomenon around us. We have these facts around us. How sort of animals develop." What's going on around us. Let's look at it and find out where that evidence leads us to. Let's find the conclusions that it leads us to make. They start with the conclusion. They start with it's God's world. He did it. How do we make the evidence that is around us, the phenomenon around us, fit to that premise? However they can do it. However they can do it. So they will make up these things to accommodate it. But the problem is that the evidence isn't pointing that way. So they have to make up more things to accommodate it. There's no place where sort of it's funny because they sort of go, oh, well, it was created kinds, but then you know all these kinds were on the ark, so it can't be species. So then they say, oh, well, then things evolve, but only on a small scale. Well, only on a small scale for an incredibly rapid amount of time, for a very short amount of time, because the amount of species that we see, you would have to have cats evolving into tigers, lions, you know, other animals. You'd have to have all the species of birds suddenly just propagate. You'd have to have tons of things happening. So you have these you know, excuses, these crutches that they have that they'll try to say, hey, let's make it fit any means possible. That's not what evolution and science is doing. It's saying, hey, let's start with this evidence and where does that lead us? Okay. Brought to you by a butt. Is there any more to this? Is that it? Well, that's it. Yeah, so I don't think much of Kyle. He really, I think that he is I don't know. I mean, is he dishonest? Is he ignorant? Does he not understand evolutionary theory? Maybe. Is he purposely dishonest? Maybe. It might be that he just goes to Answers in Genesis and gets their quotes from paleontologists and other people and evolutionists and doesn't actually question whether that's entirely what they said. But this kind of quote mining is dishonest, whether it's Kyle or whether it is where he got the quote from. It is dishonest because the way that he presents it is this, well, why is he saying this? He's saying that because you quote mined him and took him out of context. That's why he appears to be saying that. But you go on to say he's saying it because of this, and that's not the case. It is dishonest because that man did not make that statement. That's not why he's saying it, but you would rather lie to your audience than actually take the full context of what a person is saying. So I think that Kyle, I mean, he has this weird idea of science. I've seen him in debates before where he's sort of said, hey, science is what we can see, hear, taste, smell, and touch, right? So he's talking about empiricism, but he's sort of trying to say, hey, if you can't directly sense something, then it's not science, which is ridiculous. We use measurements and sort of, interferometers and voltometers and things all the time, and we can't directly see, smell, taste, sense, and touch or whatever. But we know from the way these mechanisms work that they are there. So he has this really sort of dishonest way of going about it. So he does do awesome faces, Kamikaze. You're absolutely right. And hey, Yahooligan, I was just wrapping up. So after this one, and so I don't have a high opinion of Kyle Butts. I'd probably debate him. He seems very filled with problems. But I was going to kick it over. Yahooligan, are you still going? Because I was just about to kick it over to you. So if we're ending at the same time, that's kind of unfortunate. Oh, you've already ended? Okay, well, I wanna give a big shout out to I Killed Earl in the chat. Lots of love to I Killed Earl. Send her presents and send her congratulations. Yeah, because I Killed Earl is amazing. Has always been an awesome supporter, and I want to give them a huge shout out and thanks for being here. I am disappointed. I was going to go over there and play some games, but I probably should find another redirect then. If you're unaware, we can redirect to other people. Amy is actually on, and Bree is actually on. So I think I might redirect over to Bree. If I can work out how to do it. Yeah. But Bree doesn't seem to have redirection on. Turn redirection on. Oh no, she does. Beautiful. Okay, so I'll redirect over to Bree. So yeah, stay with us and over to Hive Science, who apparently has a weasel in the hive. So Dr. Tapioca Weasel sounds like it's in there. Yeah, absolutely. When you hit there, you got to shout raid. I'm sorry, it's a total necessity now. Total necessity. But yeah, I'll leave you with the Bigfoot Jesus. All praise, and just ask yourself, what would Bigfoot do? Probably scream and rip your head off, but don't be like Bigfoot. Be like Bigfoot Jesus. So yeah. But thank you so much, everybody. It's been an absolute pleasure. Don't forget to, and before I forget, I do apologize. Thank you to all the channel members, everybody that helps me on my way. I hope you enjoy the emotes. I hope you enjoy the content. It's been a blast, and I'm getting ready for the new year. I'll probably change some stuff up. I've got to rework my entire office and what I'm doing here. So that's going to be sort of a New Year's project. I hope to get more debates and more people. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a damn lot of fun. So I hope you can join me for it. Don't forget to hit like. If you aren't subscribed, subscribe. There was somebody earlier in the chat. Yeah, if you want to talk to me and we can have a conversation either on or offline, I'm more than happy to. It's just, we're kind of just in the middle of review at the moment. So, but contact me if you do want to. But thank you so much, everybody. Lots of love. And don't forget, especially over the holiday seasons, be kind to yourself. Like, really just treat yourself with some empathy. Really treat yourself well. Especially Al, hope you get to a doctor, mate. Treat yourself well. And be kind to others, because people are going through a stressful time as well. So much love, everybody. Take care. And I will see you in the next one. Peace.